the lost. Now, when we first meet Zacchaeus, you wouldn't really think that his life was a mess. Scripture tells us that he was wealthy. He had this successful career as a tax collector. I mean, let's face it. He's incredibly successful by most standards. He's doing really, really well. Well, he may not win very many popularity contests, right? But who cares, right? I mean, if you're doing well, what do you care what other people think? So, some of you Bible people might know that in his day, in his situation there, tax collectors were hated. Even more so than today's IRS. No offense to any of you who may be public servants there. Okay? He was hated. And here's why. He understood how to take a bad situation and turn it into a good one for himself. For everyone else, the world was upside down. But this person is so clever, so industrious, so smart, so shrewd, that they know how to leverage any crisis and derive a profit from it. And that's Zacchaeus. Of course, the Roman Empire had come in and taken control of the area. They were exploiting the Jewish people. But Zacchaeus figured out how to make this whole deal work for him personally, how he could get his. In fact, it tells us that he was a chief tax collector. He wasn't just one of these run-of-the-mill agents. He'd worked his way up the ladder. And he was entrusted with the wealth of the Roman Empire that had been taken from his own people, the Jews. If he could just live with betraying his neighbors, maybe occasionally being a little aggressive with people less fortunate than himself, if he could just live with that, he had the potential to become incredibly wealthy because he could keep for himself a small percentage of what he had collected. He had to be willing to, every once in a while, threaten somebody, take advantage of somebody who was weaker. You ever known anybody like that? They just don't seem to care who it is they have to step on, who it is that they have to crush. Because if you're in the way of their success or their goals or their advancement, they won't think twice about doing whatever it takes to get you out of the way. And that's Zacchaeus. So what if he's made a few enemies along the way? You got to do what you got to do to get ahead in this world, right? So he's comfortable. The people around him, they're not so comfortable. In fact, their lives are sort of a mess. But not Zacchaeus. He doesn't struggle like his neighbors do. He's got plenty in life. But there's another kind of mess that can sometimes come. A mess that can be disguised or hidden by the sort of success and affluence that Zacchaeus had experienced. Because underneath his success and wealth, it seems like there's still something missing. He's looking for something. And the story tells us that he goes looking for Jesus. Verse 3 says, he wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. Now, how'd you like to have that be like your defining characteristic, right? And it's written down in the Bible for all time. The poor guy. As a kid, I even sang about him in Sunday school. He's a wee little man, right? Anyhow, so he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him since Jesus was coming that way. So what do you think Zacchaeus wanted to see? Why do you think he wanted to see Jesus so badly on that day? You think it was some sort of celebrity deal? You think he was just curious? Maybe he wanted to see this person he'd heard so much about, all the amazing things that he was doing. And some people were speculating that he was the one that God had sent to be the rescuer and deliverer of his people. It could be. I wonder if it could have been something deeper going on here. I wonder if maybe Zacchaeus was looking for something that all that wealth and all that success that he'd experienced hadn't been able to satisfy. Maybe there was some sort of emptiness that he felt. And he was looking for a solution, something. Maybe he felt, Pascal's concept of a God-shaped hole inside of his life, and nothing was filling that. In my experience, this happens to a lot of people. I've known many people who've been amazingly successful, either in the business world or their family life or whatever. It seems like they have this Midas touch. Everything that they're involved with seems to flourish. In one form or another, they have everything that many people dream about. They got the big house, they got the beautiful family, they have a great job, they've got social media accounts filled with amazing vacation photos. And yet, in their honest moments, they often say something like, as great as that stuff is, there's still something missing. There's not necessarily anything wrong with those things. It's just that they're not enough. Something's missing. They don't satisfy. And those folks they're not always able to articulate the why. But deep down, they'll admit that something more than that is needed for them. They crave something else. There's a great quote from the actor and comedian Jim Carrey. And he once said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." Zacchaeus, he's wealthy, he's powerful, he's successful, he's not okay. So he comes looking for Jesus. And I think there might be another reason that he picked Jesus in particular. Some of you may know that one of Jesus's followers, one of his closest 12, had formerly been a tax collector. Right? His name was Levi. We might better know him as Matthew. And Matthew had probably become very wealthy doing the exact same kinds of things that Zacchaeus had been doing to climb the ladder, to build his own wealth and success. But along the way, Matthew had encountered Jesus. Jesus had called him to be one of his followers. And he left all that luxurious lifestyle to follow Jesus. His life had been changed. And who knows if they knew each other? But I like to think that in the fairly small community like this, word travels through the tax collector grapevine. And people knew that Matthew's life had been changed. Somehow Jesus had stepped into his life and changed who Matthew was. This is one of the things, and I've told you before, one of these things that I like to think of when I read these stories in the Bible. It's the stuff we're not told. What happened? I wonder if, just a little, I wonder if Zacchaeus was curious to see for himself this man who had transformed the life of one of his former colleagues. Maybe he was curious. I wonder if that could happen for me. Maybe you're here today and you're not sure about any of this Jesus stuff. Maybe you've heard stories from other people, or maybe you've been with us for the last couple series here at church, but you're not certain. You hear the stories and you might see the examples and you think, I wonder, is this really true? Can it be? Or maybe you have a friend or family member. Maybe they invited you here today and they had become a follower of Jesus. And you notice something change in them. They may still be well off, they may still be successful at the things they do, but it just seems like the focus of their life has shifted. It's no longer simply about that stuff. Or maybe somebody who went through some deeply painful season in their life and you couldn't explain how it was that they could hold on to their faith and their hope and their peace and their joy in the middle of it all. Kind of left you scratching your head. So, like Zacchaeus, you're curious. You want to take a look for yourself. Because you've heard about Jesus, who seems to do amazing things like this. But could it be? Is it real? Is it possible? Zacchaeus was curious. So he climbs the sycamore fig tree. And Jesus is on the way, right? And then we see in verse 5, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and he said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. See, Jesus notices Zacchaeus. You know, it'd be pretty easy in a clearly large crowd to just overlook the individual people who are there. But for whatever reason, he sees Zacchaeus. You know, perhaps the least likely person to be seen in this moment. And what happens? Jesus calls him by name. He says, Zacchaeus, come on down. I want to spend some time with you. I'm going to go to your house. Let's go. How would most of us respond? You know, we've already talked a little bit about it, haven't we? Come to my house, man. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for guests, right? This big name celebrity, this one everybody's talking about, he wants to come to my house. He wants to see where I live. He's going to see how I live. I mean, this is more than just Jesus inviting himself over for lunch. This is an invitation to step into his life, to step into his story, to step into his mess. Zacchaeus just wanted to get a look at Jesus, but Jesus wanted to get a hold of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was just curious, but Jesus was committed. And this is a critical moment, you know. Zacchaeus and his curiosity has at least shown some motion toward exploring who Jesus is. And Jesus invites him deeper. So what's he going to say? What's he going to say? Thanks, Jesus. Sounds like a great offer. But I know you're a busy man. I'm a busy man too. I'm not quite ready for you to come over. Maybe by tomorrow afternoon. Could you come over tomorrow? You know, after I've had a chance to straighten things up a bit. Or would he say as he climbed down from the tree, thanks, Jesus, let's go. Come home with me. Let's hang out. You know, in some ways, this is a decision that we're all faced with. You know, every human being, I believe this. Jesus sees us. He knows who you are. He sees you even in this room, even as you watch online. He sees you. He knows you. He calls out your name. He says, whatever mess is in your life, whatever you have hidden behind the doors for nobody else to see, you know, I know it's there already, but I want to come in. You don't have to fix it yourself or tidy it up. Just open the door and let me in. What would you say? You know, things are a little too messy. I need to clean up some of those bad habits. You know, once I get those knocked out, maybe we'll have a talk then. Or, you know, it sounds like a real nice offer, Jesus. Thank you very much. And someday I might take you up on that. But, you know, right now my life's about some other priorities. I got some big things that I need to focus on. You know, when I'm older, after I achieve what I want to achieve, then maybe I'll look into it. I'm not ready now. I'm kind of busy. Can you come back later? For one reason or another, one way or another, we try to keep him on the outside instead of letting him in. And this is the question for today. What will you do with the parts of your life that aren't okay? You going to hide them? Keep them behind a closed door? Pretend they're not there? Or will you do what Zacchaeus did and open the door, invite Jesus in, and welcome him gladly? And say, you know, I'd love for you to step in my life. I admit I am not okay in ways I know and experience, and probably in ways that I can't even articulate. But the truth is, there is a lot of not okayness in my life. There's an emptiness that I've tried to fill with so many different things, and nothing seems to satisfy. I've tried all kinds of stuff. But I think I'm now at the point where I'm ready to say I'm not okay, and I need a new beginning. I need your healing and your hope and your love and your joy and your peace. Everything changes for Zacchaeus. Not when Jesus calls him down, no. But when Zacchaeus climbs down that tree and invites Jesus into his life. And I want you to know, if you're here today and you feel like you're looking for God, you got to always keep in mind that it's really the other way around. You may feel like God's elusive and hard to find, but the Bible says that God is near those who seek him. He rewards those who earnestly seek him. It says that even if you're only mildly interested in God, he is intensely interested in you. And even that mild curiosity can lead to the most incredible encounter with the creator of the universe. Because in that moment, when you first become open to him, the truth is that he has always been open to you. And he's waiting for you to simply stop running from him, because he's chasing you with love. He says to you, just like he said to Zacchaeus, I want to come to your house today. Will you receive him with gladness? Well, when Jesus and Zacchaeus decided to spend some time together, you can just imagine how happy everybody else is, right? Because we love it when we see evil, corrupt people suddenly not getting what they deserve, right? But instead, getting forgiveness. We love that, don't we? I mean, look at what happens in verse 7. All the people saw this and began to mutter. I love that word, mutter. You know any mutterers? Huh? All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. I mean, Zacchaeus' reputation didn't get better because Jesus went to eat with him. But Jesus' reputation got a little worse, didn't it? I mean, think about that. You think this was the first time that Zacchaeus has ever been called a name? Yeah, I don't think so. Remember, he's short, right? He probably grew up being ridiculed just like a lot of kids are. I wonder if part of what drove him to be successful was this drive to prove himself taller than everybody else. I just wonder. Have you ever known anybody in your life like that? They're so committed, they're so driven, because they're going to prove themselves to everyone who doubted them. I think it's very possible that that was the driving, defining motivation in Zacchaeus' life. But Jesus, in this beautiful moment, he says, this isn't about the looks you get from others or the snide comments. This is really between you and God. I mean, criticisms come and criticisms go. But what most other people say about you isn't the most important thing. And something happens inside of Zacchaeus. I mean, look at verse 8. But Zacchaeus stood up, so this is in front of folks, and said to the Lord, and everybody else there as well, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. See, Zacchaeus heard what they said about Jesus, but Jesus had accepted Zacchaeus. There was something different about him, and Zacchaeus said, here's what I'm going to do. Because you've been so gracious and kind and welcoming with me, you came into my house, you came into my life. And because you made room for me, I'm going to give away half of my wealth to the poor, which, of course, is where he'd gotten it in the first place, right? And if I've ever taken something wrongly, which, of course, he had, I'm going to pay it back 4 times. I'm going to make it right. What Zacchaeus is saying to Jesus is this: I know the life I've been living is not okay. As good as it's been, it's not okay. Because I know who I've been. I know who I am. And I know who I want to be because of you. See, it's one of the beautiful things that happens when you welcome Jesus into your life. When you enter into a relationship with God, he begins the healing from the inside out. He's less concerned about the surface and more concerned about what's underneath. You know, those internal wounds, those soul wounds that nobody else can see, the hunger that all the success in the world can't ever satisfy. I wonder, if you're listening to this today and you spend so much of your life trying to look good on the outside, trying to earn the approval of everyone around you. I mean, just think, how much of your life has been spent trying to make everybody else think that you're okay? So concerned with the outside. See, when you really get the gist of who God is, who Jesus is, you realize that you don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to pretend anymore or act like you're perfect anymore. You don't have to perform like you got it all together. You can be honest and simply say, God, I'm done pretending. I'm not okay. And I need you to heal the wounds that no one else can see, to heal the brokenness that I can't even understand myself. And it all begins with welcoming Jesus in.